So welcome to the platform updates for July 2025. My name is Paul Gregory, and I would just like to walk you through some of the things that we've been doing in the platform and see how we're doing. Okay, so one of the things we'd like to tell you about, we're keeping it a bit of a secret, but we'd like to share with you in case you're interested. A lot of you are more than likely aware of our connectivity check lab. Some of you might use this, you might put it in documentation that you give to people and so on. But if you go to the Skillable Documents site and just say, for example, search for connectivity, you'll find the connectivity requirements. And one of the things that we have is we have a lab on here. So effectively, this allows customers to send this link to their customers or to the people that are going to take the training. And it allows them to verify that they can actually access the lab. So make sure they've got no firewall problems, make sure the performance is okay, all those sort of things. And we talked about that we updated this recently. So we actually updated this so it's got the new client, it's got some cleaner navigation and sort of demonstrates a few tips. So a lot of customers use this, but this is something that's very much basic. Okay, so one of the things we have done, because a couple of customers asked us for this, and if you'd like to get access to this, then just reach out to us, either just contact support or contact your TSM, your CSM, your account exec, and you can ask them for this. Okay, we've released what we call an advanced connectivity check lab. We're not putting it on our help documentation because it sort of doesn't make sense to put two there. How would someone know really which one they need? So it's really your lab builders and customers, you can decide which one you want to share with the people that take your training. So really the difference with this is it's now multi-VM. So it's got a Windows VM and a Linux VM. So it's got stuff in there around switching between VMs, as well as obviously seeing the two different operating systems. It's got more interaction in the instructions. So basically there are prompts in the instruction where you've got to fill information in. It's got questions, and it's also got activities. So it's got a few more advanced features and functions. Okay, so if you'd like to have that, so you can include that as part of your documentation and of course share that out to people that take your training rather than the standard one that we use, then please just reach out to us. That's available now and you can absolutely have that. Other things that have happened. So Skillable Connect, for those that are not familiar, Skillable Connect is the name we give our API integration. So regardless of how you're connecting to our systems, if you're from your LMS, we refer to that as Skillable Connect. One of the integration models that we support is LTI. Okay, so this is a standard developed by the IMS Global organization, and we support LTI 1.1 and LTI 1.3. LTI 1.1 is technically depreciated by IMS, but we are still adding capability. So one of the things that we added during June and July was the ability for your labs to be geolocated. So effectively, we will work out where the user is, and we will launch the lab in the closest location to the user. Okay, so therefore minimizing latency and those sort of things. So the great thing is that should give your customers a better experience. From your point of view, there's nothing actually you need to do. Okay, it's just enabled automatically. So that there is nothing you need to do. So just wanted to let you know that if you are a customer that integrates with us using LTI, you should hopefully start to see some performance improvements for customers that are maybe outside of the US. The next thing I'd like to sort of show you is an update to our Insights platform. I thought I had the link here, but I haven't, so I'll just go and fire it up. So we've actually done a bit of a rebrand on our reporting platform, which is our Insights platform. So if you are an Insights customer, but you've not been into Insights in the last 2 to 3 weeks, or you're not an Insights customer, then obviously you can reach out to us and get enabled for Insights so that you can get deep reported data about what's going on in your environment. So there are lots of reports that you can get enabled. So this is just like the summary top level dashboard. And of course, you can do things like drill into these if that's what you want to do. And you can sort of even export data and things from within here. There are quite a few reports that you potentially could have access to. This has only got a couple of reports in here because it's just a sort of a demo tenant for the lab developer workshops. So, but hopefully if you are using, if you have been using Insights, you'll see that we've sort of cleaned up the UI a little bit, made it a bit easier to use. A lot of the sort of Skillable branding's in there and that as well. So ultimately, we've got that. So again, just to repeat, we've updated Insights. There are more updates in the pipeline, so you will see this evolve a little bit more as time goes on. Second of all, if you're not an Insights customer and you'd like access to this, then just reach out to us, and we will get you onboarded for using Insights. Insights is not an extra service we charge for. There is no cost for this. Okay. And the final thing is if you want data and you're not getting the data you want, tell us. We can build you a custom report in here as well. So you could have your own custom report. So on this reports page, we have lots of customers that have their own custom reports. I think if I just go in here, another one of our test organizations, you can see, there's ranges of reports that can be added to accounts and things depending on who you are. Okay. So Insights has been improved. Okay, if you've not seen that. Another cool feature. Okay, so really simple feature, really simple concept. Okay, we've now added a new option that chances are you would never find unless you attended the lab developer workshop. Okay, so this option will allow you to display the instructions of a lab while the lab is building. So most of you will be familiar, especially if you create virtual machine based labs, you get the building thing and the people have to sit there and it says, it's going to take like 1 minute 30 or whatever the time is while it's building. And then you get the environment loaded and you get the instructions on the right hand side. By enabling this feature, which you set on a per lab profile, you can actually get the instructions to appear straight away. So imagine you could either have that to display some sort of terms and conditions or NDA, or you could even have it to, if there's a big scenario someone's got to read, or there's a video that you want them to watch, that can all be happening while the lab's loading and things. So it's really simple if you wanted to use this feature. Effectively, on the advanced page of a lab profile, okay, there is just a tick box, show instructions while building. Simple as that. Simple as that. Okay, just tick the box and that's it. So if I was, again, just to go and find something that's maybe got some content. So if I come in here and find this one will do. Okay, so I'm going to use this for something else in a moment. If I just come into here and do edit profile, go to the advanced page, here's the tick box, show instructions while building. Okay, so I can tick the box. Actually, is this a good one to use? This is a bad one to use. Okay, because this is going to load instantly. So just pretend I didn't do that. We'll go find something else. That one, this one will do. Okay. I'll just tick the option on this one. And I will go and press launch. So we go off and do our checks to make sure that you're allowed to launch it. We go and make sure that we've got the resources, and then we start basically building the environment. So you can see here, we've now actually got the instructions window loaded. Okay. So normally, obviously, this wouldn't work if the first thing was log in. Okay. So it's normally if you've got one of those labs where you've got stuff that you want them to read before they get going. So you might have some introductory content, you might have some orientation, things like telling them what's behind the cog, or how to save the lab if that's applicable, and the resources tab. You might have those sorts, so you might want to explain all of those sorts of things. Okay, so just wanted to sort of highlight that new feature to you. Okay. So that was actually released last Thursday. Okay. back in February, we did a lab developer workshop on a feature called custom VM endpoints. And we did the lab developer workshop on the insight link is insight.skillable.com. So insights.skillable.com. I'll put that into the chat for you. But you know, if you've not been registered for it, you wouldn't have access. So basically, if you try to log in and you've not been enabled, you'll just get an access denied message. Okay. Okay. So we released VM endpoints back in March. We did the lab developer workshop in February on it, and there was a couple of things missing. Okay. And we said they would be coming. So one of the things that was missing was you didn't have the little select link and the username and password options. They've all now been added in. So you've now got the @labs so that you can click on it and it will switch you to the endpoint. You've also got the username and password option. We've also got some new connection mechanisms. So we've got PowerShell. So again, in the lab developer workshop, we actually built PowerShell connections across SSH. We now do that natively. So we don't need to configure the internals of SSH on Windows to make it open a PowerShell prompt. We also have now got VNC support, so you can connect into a remote system using VNC. And we've also got Telnet support. Now, we're not expecting Telnet to be used quite extensively for things like Linux and Windows, but Telnet might be more applicable for appliances like routers and switches and things along those lines. So that protocol's been enabled. There are also some other features as well. So let me just go back to my browsers as well and drag over a different lab profile. A couple of things I forgot to put on the slide. So the first thing we've got is actually you can now order the endpoints. So you can actually move them up and down so you can have them in the order that you would like the endpoints to be in. So if I was to launch this lab, okay, what we will actually see is we'll get the endpoints listed across the top. Okay, and then what I can do is I could change the order of them here, and that would actually reflect in the lab client when I refresh the lab client. So if you wanted them in a specific order, you could have them in any order you needed. Okay, whereas before they were in per VM alphabetical order. So you had all the stuff for the first VM, all the stuff for the second VM. Now you can have them in any order that you actually want. So you can see we've got the endpoints here. So let's say, for example, we've got the Zorin desktop and we've got the Windows Server desktop option in here. Okay, it's just going to take a while for the child services to launch. I shouldn't have picked this one because it's got nested VMs, so they take a while to load. But if I swap those two round, just to show you, so if I come in here and I'm going to basically move the desktop, Windows desktop above the Zorin desktop. Okay, so you can see that I've swapped those around. So if I now go back into the lab client, let's just hit a refresh. This option would actually update live straight away. So you can now see I've got the Windows desktop and then the Linux desktop one after it. Okay, so you can now order those. The other thing that we've also got is if you've got a lot of these, okay, they could scroll off the screen. So if I just make this window a bit smaller, you can actually see that we've now got like little navigation bars on here. Okay, so you can move the window along. So if I was just to sort of do something like that, you can see that I can sort of work my way along backwards and forwards. Okay, if you've got a lot of those. Okay, so hopefully if I just go and click on these, just to show you, obviously they should be working now, because obviously I did say that, oh, look, we got the failed connect message, and it was just because the nested VMs hadn't started. But hopefully you can see they're working. Okay. Cool. Let me just move that one back, put it back to as it was. That one needs to go there, actually. That was one I changed earlier on. So a few changes as far as endpoints are concerned. Okay. There's even more stuff coming, but we'll talk about that in a moment. A couple of things which I just wanted to highlight because these are, whereas we don't often talk about bugs that we fix, because generally they're not things that impact our customers directly. We have fixed a couple of bugs that have impacted our customers recently. So Joseph, there isn't, if you haven't got endpoints, no, we don't do that. Because to be honest, if you've only got VMs, we would recommend you use the select token, to be honest, in the instructions. Get them to click on the VM name in the instructions so it switches to the correct VM automatically. That would always be our preferred mechanism, really, rather than trying to navigate people up to the drop down or go to the resources tab. Just put a link in the instructions to switch them to the VMs. We find that's the most efficient mechanism. Okay, so bug fixes. So basically, we had a couple of bug fixes. One is, if you use ESX on our platform, you can upload OVA files so you can import virtual machines into our platform. We did actually have a problem with some of the extraction processes where it was putting files in different places, and then sometimes our system wouldn't find all of the files. That's now been fixed. Okay, it's just the way we built our distributed storage, and there was a bit of an issue there. So that's been resolved. So if you were getting the old import OVA and getting a file not found error, that should have disappeared now. The other problem we was having was we was getting some blocking issues with replication when replicating storage to different data centers. Okay, that has also now been resolved. So we're actually caching content in remote data centers far more reliably now. Before, it always used to work. It just used to take a lot longer because there might have been a few retries and things, and it would get there eventually. Of course, something that's got to be completely transparent about this, if you're replicating 100 gigabytes of data, it's still going to take a while to get to the other data centers. It's not going to happen in 1 minute. Okay, so but hopefully it should now be reliable and robust, whereas we was having some challenges in that area. So you should see sort of some improvements. So one of the problems we was often coming across is customers making big changes to labs over the weekend, and they wanted them to deliver the lab Monday morning. Okay, and basically the content wasn't replicated. So unless you're making terabytes of changes, that should get replicated now, no problems. A couple of great questions there. Thank you very much. If anyone's got any other questions about the updates, then feel free to ask, raise your hand, throw something into the chat. No problems at all. Now, because you are our amazing trusted audience, we've got a couple of sneak peek, or a sneak peek, two sneak peeks, one sneak peek and something else, okay, that I want to show you. So this is back to endpoints. Okay, one of the things we will be doing is bringing out endpoints v2 quite soon. Okay, most of the development work is now done. So I think we'll either see it during August or very early September with respect to endpoints v2. So what are endpoints v2 all about, and what do they bring to the party? Well, basically, in terms of user functionality, they don't change anything. They still make it really easy for users to be able to connect to a variety of resources in a lab. However, they make the lab developer experience much, much easier to do. Okay, so for those that attended the February Lab Developer Workshop, we spent a lot of time talking about, nested network address translation services and all sorts of things going on. So that if you've got nested VMs or containers, there was a whole load of stuff that you had to do to make it work. So as a lab developer, there was a lot of networking sort of things you had to solve and deal with. Okay, and if you look at the templates that we have in the template gallery, in the showcase section, you'll see some of them have got some quite complex things in there from a networking point of view to make them work. Okay, So the whole idea with this now is we're introducing a new endpoint gateway. Okay, so the idea with this is you can actually say, I want to deploy a gateway. So this would actually get deployed to the production side of your lab network. Okay, and then that can be used to connect into the resources. So this actually makes it much easier to set up those nested resources like nested VMs, containers, all those sort of things. So this really takes away the majority of the configuration that you have to do inside the virtual machine. Of course, there is still some, okay, but it's much simpler now, much simpler. So hopefully this will just improve the situation very significantly. Okay, so that's coming. So you should see that quite soon. As I say, in the next sort of 6 weeks, I would imagine. The other thing I want to talk about, I want to just talk about something, and I would love you to put comments into the chat, okay? Because we're trying to gauge some feedback here. So I want to show you something to start with, and then I want to talk about something else. I'd love to say your comments. If you've got questions, this is brilliant. It would be brilliant as well. So this is all revolving around artificial intelligence, AI, because the world is, of course, AI crazy. Okay. So if we think about Skillable, historically, Skillable has tried to be an innovator when it comes to instructional design. Okay. So if we go back to the 90s and the noughties, where Skillable came from, okay, when people were writing instructions in a lab, they would be very much procedural based instructions. So it would be step 1, log in, step 2, click here, step 3, do this, whatever it might be. Okay. So it was really sort of, that sort of really explaining steps in detail. One of the things that we did at Skillable was we tried to move the dial on education through the use of challenge labs. So really what we was trying to do with the use of challenge labs was to actually set more of an objective-based model. Okay, this is what we want you to achieve. These are the pertinent pieces of data that you actually wanted, that you needed to achieve that. Okay, now go off and work out how to do it. And then that actually even then moved onto things like scenario-based learning, where it's literally a case of, this is what we want you to do, go do it. Okay. Now, in reality, one of the things that becomes really powerful through the use of AI, okay, is we can actually build training environments now which are far more targeted to the need of the actual user. Okay, so as Skillable, we're defining a new instructional design philosophy that we're actually referring to as learner-led learning. Okay, so the concept behind this is, as a lab developer, you would basically build the environment, and then there'd be a couple of bits you would do in the instructions, but you wouldn't really do much. And the whole idea with this is we can get artificial intelligence to actually create the learning for the user. So what that means is the user becomes far more engaged, because the learner can, whereas they can't pick the big subject, say for example data science, because that's the environment you've built a data science environment. Okay, so they can't pick data science, but what they can do is they can say, well, actually, I need to learn some stuff about data science, and they could maybe pick a subject that's completely relevant to them. That might be a subject that's actually in the work domain, or because they're learning, maybe they've got a hobby. Let's say, for example, they're interested in weather forecasting. So they actually then choose to use this time they can spend learning data science to actually use a subject that they know a lot about as a hobbyist. And therefore, that's really going to teach them the sort of approaches, the techniques, the tactics they can use for that technology, which then hopefully they can take into the business. Okay, so this is the concept behind learner-led learning. Okay, so this is actually something that I've built, which I'm just going to launch using our existing AI capability, but we're actually going to make this native to the platform. Okay, So really be interested in what you think about this and stuff. So this is just a template that I've thrown together. Don't worry about too much about what's on the right hand side. I'm just going to log in just for completeness. So effectively, this is just a machine that's configured for the purposes of data science. So it's got loads of data science tools installed. You can see it's got things like Visual Studio down the bottom. There's many other things that are installed in here. And the artificial intelligence knows that. So imagine, for example, the user comes into a lab. There's a little page that says, this is how you get started. Okay. And then basically they end up on a page, something like this. So basically, having reviewed the software available in this AI experimental learning practice, blah, 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 blah. But effectively what they can do is they can then come into this chat box and they can tell the artificial intelligence what they would like to learn. Okay, so obviously the artificial intelligence knows it's going to be data science. It knows what software is available, okay, because that's all been defined. Okay, so the person could sit here and say, help me learn about using data science to learn about also data science to work with data about the weather. Okay. So this will now go off, and what it's basically going to do is it's going to create a whole set of learning activities. Okay, so it's going to give me stuff where I'm going to be able to go do some research to find out about stuff. It's then going to tell me, right, what tools I'm going to need to use. Okay, it's then actually going to give me, in this case, the ability to go get some data, and then actually give me these steps. And of course, what I can do, because this is conversational, as well as it giving me practical examples of doing this stuff, I could also ask it for more advice on each of the steps. Or I don't know how to do that step. Give me some instructions or step-by-step guides on how I would do the data sanitization, for example. Okay. Now, as I say, what I've done here is I've taken a feature that we have and I've effectively crowbarred this capability into this feature. So it doesn't use some of the nice things that we have in our platform. Okay. But ultimately, we're actually going to bake this into the platform so you could use it and it will understand more what it's actually trying to do from a content creation point of view, and it will format the instructions exactly as our platform would, with all the proper boxes and all those sort of things. So great question. Can this be trained to gather information from our own documentation? Well, this uses public AI. So I guess the question is the documentation publicly accessible? If the documentation is publicly accessible, then it would know about that. So ultimately, the simple answer is yes. We're trying to minimize training in terms of the AIs we're going to provide, because as soon as you train, you limit. Okay, so we want to minimize training from that point of view, because ultimately it will mean it cuts it off from knowing other stuff. One of the things this feature will allow is if you're, for example, let's say, for example, your documentation is not publicly accessible, okay, you will be able to connect it to your own AI. So if you've got your own AI, which obviously has access to all your own documentation, rather than use our public one, we will give you the ability at some point to connect it to your own, okay, and therefore, again, leverage your data, okay. So this is just using OpenAI in Azure, okay? So this is based on whatever public data is available. Great question. So that's something we're working on. So we're going to sort of look at baking it into the platform. Actually, one of the things, it's not going to be something that's going to be out next month. This is 2-3 months away, but it's coming. Okay. One of the other than obviously attend the lab developer workshop, which will be obviously an amazing way to find out about it. You will be able to find out about it because there'll be a new option on the AI menu. So it will be AI practice will be the feature. Okay. So if you keep an eye on that, you'll see that coming soon. So that's for learner-led learning. So that's so the learner, okay, could it be used to help as a help bot for students? Ask for additional help during a live lab. Okay, so Christopher, that we've got. You know, ultimately that would be you just use the AI chat tool. Okay, we've had that for a year. Yeah, absolutely. You've got that now. Okay. So that's what you would use that for if you want them to chat. And we've also got the AI menu tool, okay, which allows them to click on things in your text and they can do things like teach me about it. Let me show you an example. Let me go and find something quickly. So I can show you like those in action really, really quickly, really easily. Let me go here. Let me get this. Let me go to this lab. Okay, let me just launch this one. So those features there and available for you to use. Okay, so in here, for example, if I come down in here, so this has got some AI stuff in it. So here, for example, because this is about Azure Data Factory and it's teaching you, so it's got embedded video, it's got instructions, that sort of stuff. So you don't have to write everything. Here I've got this concept of, you know, basically the integration process or the integration process called ETL. So what if you don't know what ETL means? I can click on that and say, what is ETL? Okay, and it will go out and it will basically pull data from the AI and it will then come back and tell me what ETL stands for. So it's extract, transform and load. And if I'll think, well, I need to know more, I can click on the detailed explanation and say, give me more. So you can do that. Or as you can see, you can have the chat tool embedded, okay, to do exactly what you want. And I do call that the virtual instructor. That's exactly what I call that. Okay. So all that's there and available today. It's just the new bit that I'm talking about is not there today. I've just hacked it using the AI chat tool. Okay. But we're going to have it baked in and it's going to be obviously like tighter. Cool. The other thing, so yeah, absolutely, like you know, love to know in terms of the AI practice tool and this learner-led learning, love to know what you think about that because I'd love to feed that back to the team. The other thing we're working on and be really interested on your thoughts on this, okay? Is we're going to embed AI into the instructions editor. So the idea here, okay, is in the instructions editor, you will be able to use artificial intelligence to create your content for you. Okay, so this would be a lab builder, lab author tool. Okay, so you can sit here, there'll be like a little new menu in here. You can click on it and it'll bring out a flyout and you can basically give it a whole load of information and it will go and write the lab for you. Now, of course, you might want to tweak that, modify it a little bit. And of course you can. And then what you can actually do is you can keep getting it to add and add and add more content to it. Okay. So we're also looking at building that in. So I'd love to see whether you would actually find having tools to help you build the instructions using artificial intelligence, you would find valuable as well. Okay. You know, we see that as something that's going to sort of, you know, reduce the amount of work and effort. And to some extent, some of you might be doing that today. You might be going out to Gemini or ChatGPT and getting it to create some content. So, you know, would you find if you could actually do that natively in the platform and it does all the markdown formatting, all that for you. So it actually brings a lot of value compared to, you know, just using a generic AI. Well, that would be useful. Okay. So that's what we're working on. That should be before year end, long way before year end. But so there's a couple of sneak peeks of things that we're working on. Okay. Okay. Actually, Darmic's thrown a quick question to the chat. So because we haven't started the main subject of the lab developer workshop, I'm going to just quickly answer Darmic's question. So basically, yeah, the simple answer is, Darmic, you need to turn off enhanced session mode. So basically, if I was to come into here, is this a good one? That's just a really bad one to use. Let me find something else. That's no good. That one's no good. Let me find. Yeah, that one I do. Okay, so when you're on your lab profile, okay, because they've got a problem with AI vision. On the lab profile, if you come down to the VM that you've got on there and just edit it, you'll see the use enhanced session mode box will be ticked. We don't support that with AI vision today, so you have to take the tick out of the box. Okay, and then your AI vision will work. Okay, it is one of the restrictions.